Shalom and good evening from Connect in Galilee in the Jezreel Valley here in Israel. I'm Amir Tsarfati, and we are here to answer your questions regarding current events and Bible prophecy. As always, together with me, Pastor Barry Stagner from Southern California and Pastor Mike Golay from Minnesota, and he will be moderating our Q&A today. Shalom, Pastor Mike and Pastor Barry. How are you, gentlemen?
Shalom. Good. Very good.
Good.
You know, we're living through historic times that I don't know if we thought we'll ever live to see, things that we never thought we'll live to see. Personally, I think we're watching live before our very eyes the great separation between Israel and America. I'm not talking about the believers. I'm not talking about the church. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the political systems. And you know, if it's done when you have the Democrats in power, then it's one thing. But when it happens while your best friend ever sits as president, or at least someone you consider it hurts as much as it's predicted and as much as it's something you knew is coming. It hurts, and it left quite a few of us here in complete shock. And not every day, every hour that passes, the shock is even greater because things are not getting better, they're getting actually worse. But hey, the good news are that we know the end of the book. We know how the story ends. And we choose not to trust circumstances, but actually to trust the name of the Lord, His plans, and His ways. Pastor Barry, would you do us the honor and start this broadcast with a prayer?
Absolutely. And Lord, what Amir just said is so pivotal for times such as these, that we know the end of the story. You've given us all things pertaining to life and godliness. And we pray that our time together today would be beneficial to your people and that it would glorify your name. So we ask, Lord, that you would anoint the words that are spoken in the ears of the hearer. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pastor Mike Golay, how are you, my friend? You ready to lay down the ground rules and to start shooting those questions?
We are very much ready and excited. Ground rules are, if you can, put your first name. All you do to write your question is put it in the chat, and we have a team gathering those, and they'll put them up on the screen when it comes time to ask it. All questions regarding Bible prophecy, and current events, especially in the Middle East, are welcomed. So, are you gentlemen ready? The first question is from Mara. Ezekiel 38, verse 11 says, quote, "I will go to a peaceful people who dwell safely without walls." First one up, Pastor Barry, you've talked a lot about this, and be interested to hear what you have to say about the situation there on the ground in Israel, if this matches this context. What does the current situation in the Middle East mean for the safety aspect prior to the Ezekiel 38 war? In other words, what's the criteria that would arrive at this standard outlined in Ezekiel 38? What are some of your thoughts on that, Pastor Barry?
Well, there's two schools of thought, that there will be a time of peace prior to the Ezekiel war. And, you know, I look at it for what it says. I believe it says basically a peaceful people, meaning a people who desire peace. And that's already present in the nation of Israel. They were sick and tired of the wars, the attacks from the south and those from the north, the threats from Iran. And they are already a peaceful people. Now, that doesn't mean that it cannot mean what the other interpretation commonly is that there's going to be kind of a pause in all of this wars and rumors of wars and attacks against Israel. And, it's interesting because, we hear quite frequently people talking about all the walls that divide the Palestinian areas from
Right.
the Jewish areas have to come down. But this is language that is basically indicative of the times in which it was written, because most cities, including Jerusalem, were surrounded by walls. But this is not the case in our day today, and I think that's probably the more likely interpretation. I don't think the wall that divides Bethlehem and other places from the Jewish areas have to come down. I think there are people who desire peace, who live in unwalled villages and towns already. So I think the thing could kick off at any moment. We've got all the players lined up, many of them already active militarily. We've certainly got the main players, Turkey, Iran, and Russia, pretty bold in their stance against the Jews. And they'll be joined by Libya and Sudan in their attack on the nation of Israel. So I think all things are kind of at the ready and just waiting for that moment where it's all going to kick off, which could very possibly be the destruction of Damascus. And one of the things that the president said that I think is so beyond bizarre is that he thinks Syria would do a better job dealing with Hezbollah than Israel. And then, Al-Jilani comes out and says there will be no Syrian attacks on Hezbollah because they are basically brothers in arms, so to speak, against the little Satan, Israel, and the great Satan, the United States.
Yeah, Amir, this question it comes in a context of Hebraic thought in Ezekiel's day. What would you add to that answer in terms of its context within a Jewish mindset, quote, without walls? Because that's a question that comes up a lot with modern Israel preceding this Ezekiel Gog and Magog war.
Well, this is a description of modern Israel. We don't live in villages and towns surrounded by walls. We are a sovereign state with a strong military. We have borders with other countries, and even that is something that right now is being reshaped. As you know, we're deep in Gaza, deep in Lebanon, and deep in Syria. So we are peaceful people. Most of our songs are about peace. We long for peace. We want peace. We have zero demands from our neighbors. We do not want to seek Damascus, Beirut, or even Amman or Cairo. We have, all we want is to live in peace. That's all. And so we are a strong country with people that wants to live in peace. And the situation that we're in right now is we're dealing with the elimination of an enemy that wants to destroy us. We have nothing against the Lebanese people or peace-loving Syrian people or anyone around us that wants to live in peace with us. We don't have territorial disputes and demands from anyone around us. That's the reality. So as Pastor Barry indicated, I believe that we definitely live in times that are 100% fitting the Ezekiel narrative that we read in that verse. I can also tell you that Israel today is also enjoying enormous prosperity, amazing rise in the global scene, in becoming a energy superpower, technology superpower, cybersecurity superpower, and all of those things. And so, again, and most of what we sell, by the way, is defensive systems that help countries defend themselves from enemies. So, basically, we're talking about all of these things that are I think, all fit the description of Ezekiel 38, verse 11, where we're not a nation made up of different tribes that each one of them is trying to survive in its own territory and is surrounded by its own walls and all of that. It's a different thing. Let's face it, our situation today, the closest it can be described to is to the time of, I don't know, maybe King David, when we were a united kingdom and we had one military and we had borders around us rather than, within us. So this is it. And that's the situation. And I look at it this way.
It's a remarkable miracle. I mean, the airport is accommodating basically all the countries coming in and going out, ships. It's a completely different scenario than in the ancient days where they, like you guys said, had walls. So let's, Amir, let me throw this one at you. Carol, good to have you on. Carol, let's throw her question up. Amir, do you think, and this is one of those interesting questions. Do you think we will be riding actual horses when we return with Jesus, as described in Revelation 19? How can we determine when the Bible is speaking literally versus allegorically? Do I get an Arabian horse? And yeah, what kind of? Hey, it's a great question. Great question. So
yeah,
this is where we have to enter into a little bit of deduction and maybe some sanctified imagination. Amir.
Yeah. Well, the description is that we are having a body and that we are having an outfit also on us. And
Right.
so it's very physical description that describes exactly who we are, what we're going to look like, and how we're going to reach back. So to me, if it says, it's going to be, it's going to be horses, then I think that's what it's going to be. Now, that obviously, these horses will be unique because they are not riding on solid ground in the very beginning. But last time I heard, when Elijah was taken up, it wasn't on solid ground that those horses and that chariot came. So,
interesting. Yes.
I do believe that it's horses. I do believe they will be different and unique than a horse that we find here. And I think God will take care of the rest. You see, I don't even bother myself to ask those questions. And it's very interesting because even when it says in verse 19, and I saw the beast, the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. So Jesus is coming riding a horse. We are behind him coming riding horses. It's not like a horse. It's not could be a horse. By the way, many times when Ezekiel, for example, would write about his visions, and even Isaiah and also John quite a few times, they would use the term like, the likeness of, when they didn't know how to describe something that was not exactly that. But we don't have that thing here. We don't have he was riding something that looks like a horse. And so this is how I see. And again, I'm looking at it, and it says the very begin in verse 14. It says very explicitly, and the armies in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses.
Wow, specific.
They didn't follow him on creatures that look like horses or anything like that. White horses. So I think it's enough for me to determine that it's white horses. And, and that's it.
Well, yeah. So any final thoughts on that, Barry? Because I got one for you from Carl coming up here. Any final thoughts on that real quick?
No, I agree. I think, the Bible is always careful to identify something that's allegorical or figurative in meaning. You find that especially in Revelation, where, John turned to see the voice that talked to him, and he had a voice like the sound of many waters, and the sound of thunder. So that's a timeless imagery that allows people from every age of history to understand what John was saying. There was a loud voice, loud like thunder, roared like a waterfall. So, yeah, I think
Exactly.
most of the imagery is clearly identified through phrases or words like or as is or as if, and things that tell us when we can
In this case,
look at
not.
it a little bit beyond the literal meaning.
Well, we'll definitely find out. Yeah, definitely we'll find out. So Carl is asking this question, Pastor Barry. Do you think the resignation of Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, as will have any impact on England's attitude towards Israel? Will it improve relations? Could it have a positive domino effect throughout Europe? Prime Minister Starmer has an expiration date. And now, what is next in regards to the UK-Israeli relations, in your opinion?
Well, Mike, I think in a lot of cases that things will reach a point of no return. And I think Europe, including England, has already reached that point. I don't think there's any going back. There may be a little bit of, rejoicing over this for the few in England that are supporters of the nation of Israel. And you find them generally to be within the church there, which is small, obviously. And but they've got immigration that has just basically turned the country over to the Muslims, and I really think they've reached an irreversible position, and I don't think it's going to make any difference whatsoever. Not not in the long haul. Well, in the long haul, no, because we already know what's going to happen. Zechariah 12:3 says clearly, every nation of the world is going to find Israel to be a burdensome stone, and we are deep, deep, deep into that right now, Mike. I think it's sad, but at the same time, it's exciting because this is all preparation for what's going to happen during the tribulation, which we have no appointment with. We won't see one split second of the tribulation. We have to be removed for the Antichrist to be revealed. So I think this is just kind of an aside that really isn't going to change the direction of anything nationally for the British people and their attitude towards Israel.
Yeah. Amir, is there anything left of the UK in terms of its love for Israel or support for Israel, or is that ship left the port long ago?
Well, if you're asking me, or
Yeah, I'm asking you, like, as an Israeli,
I think the UK is in a worse shape than the rest of Europe, if you ask me. And look, Mike, when you have a report that speaks about gang rape of thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of girls,
probably,
and nobody talks about it in the media, it's over. If the media will not address it, that means that ship sailed long time ago. They're so afraid to be tagged as Islamophobic, that overrides their judgment, their moral compass, and their allegiance to their own people. So there's no doubt in my mind. And again, believers, look, in every country, believers will feel alienated from their own governments also, and will also, and it's going to happen in America, if not already happening right now. It happens in the UK. It happens in all over Western Europe. I travel, I see. They come to me, they tell me, the Dutch people and in Italy and in Germany, they say, we are no longer, we don't feel like this is where we were born. This is the same country, the same values. I mean, it's so funny that those countries have crosses on their flags, and yet they're more into appeasing Muslims than to take care of Christian values and Christian rights in their own country. And so my point is, we're at the point in history that we all need to remember that there is a separation that God is doing, I believe, or at least allowing. And slowly, it's the people of God versus everybody else. And he always uses Israel to test the people. Israel has always been a litmus test, and we see it. We see it all over the world.
Yeah.
And so, in regards to UK, there's thousands of born again, spirit filled, wonderful believers. But as a country, the political system, that ship already sailed. And I think they know it. And in the same case, the same is with Belgium and the Netherlands, and also to some degree in Spain and Portugal and in France and in Germany. So Australia, New Zealand, Canada. This is it. I mean, they have completely capitulated to the enormous wave of uncontrolled immigration that, unlike before, is not willing to assimilate, but actually demands that the locals will assimilate to theirs. And so it's very sad, but at the same time, what did you expect the end times to look like?
Yeah, that's feeling
exactly
of the end times again.
And it's okay to feel sad, because as believers we are to feel sad when we see injustice, and when common sense is thrown out of the window, when we see the righteous being attacked and the wicked springs up like grass. But remember, the same scripture that talks about the wicked springing up like grass and the workers of iniquity are flourishing, it's also the same scripture that says that they will be destroyed forever. In the temporary or perspective, they might be doing well, but in the eternal perspective, there's destruction. And so, it's very sad. Look, listen, Mike, I myself am very sad nowadays. You know, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, I can't believe we've reached that point. But then I'm reminded that, and I have, by the way, I cut down my news consumption maybe 90%. Not only that I'm not reporting, I'm not even finding out what the news is all about. You know, I'm only getting ready for our news broadcast once a week, and if there is something big that I need to talk about, I will. But that's it. I do not want to immerse myself with all of that, because it's sickening, it's poisonous, and it's deceptive. It's very deceptive also. So, you know,
and how have you? Yeah, go ahead.
I said it's okay to not feel great nowadays, but if you go back to scriptures, you always find a comfort. A, that God is in control, and B, that everything that happens, it's something that we've been teaching for 30-something years.
Right.
And we just probably never wanted to see it, but we knew it was going to come, and it has arrived.
You're right. Well,
Hey, Mike, can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting in light of what Amir just mentioned, you know, and watching these things move so quickly, and just literally overnight, things change dramatically as far as the relationship between the U.S. and the nation of Israel, and the comments made by the president. But, you know, this is exactly what we should expect based on the birth pang progression that Jesus talked about in Matthew 24, 3-8. He implies that, you know, things are going to happen more quickly and they'll be more intense as you get closer and closer to the day of his coming. And Revelation opens with that very statement that he's going to show the things that will shortly take place. And shortly means in quick succession once they begin. And so here we are moving rapidly away from what once was to something that is expected, which is basically a precursor to when we're going to get taken out of here and the whole tribulation thing is going to begin. You know, I have a pit in my stomach too. I'm just shocked by the things that have come from the president's mouth lately. And but the Bible says, hey, that's the way it's going to be. and things will happen fast the closer
Yeah.
we are to the end of the church age. So I
What's-
think it's late in the game, so to speak.
Yeah. And you know what? We should stop feeding our souls and minds with a lie that we have shared values with, believers have shared values. I mean, Christians
Right.
have
In
shared
the church.
values.
And even in the
But
church,
when
it's,
it comes to
a
countries,
division
yeah. But when it comes to countries, if you haven't noticed yet, you should now.
Yeah.
It's not about shared values. It's not.
Right.
Maybe you thought it was. No, it's about interests. And you can maybe hang your shared interest on shared values for a time when it serves your interest. But when your interests are no longer the interest of your ally, then suddenly the values goes out through the window, because it's the interest that trumps everything else. So we have to stop lying to ourselves that as countries, it's going to be values. Now, having said that, as believers, it better be values and not just interest. That's the point. And so I don't think that for a second the political rivalry between America and Israel is going to affect my relationship with you guys, for example. Both of you are Americans, but you are not. We do have shared values. We do,
much deeper than
because
nationalism, for sure.
so when I am talking about the political system, it's one thing. But I don't think that, hey, I don't want to hear about America. I don't want to, that's no. We have shared values with millions of Americans. And I do believe that the voices of those millions of Americans with whom we have shared values are now being suppressed by a regime that is looking only into interests. But I still believe that there are millions of Americans that are as shocked, as appalled, as disgusted by what they see now. So it's not like a president, flips overnight, making a 180 degrees turn, and everybody is with him. I think that I think he's going to find out soon. He's going to find out soon that many of what used to be a big camp that supports him is not approving what his own ambassador to Israel, who is a born-again Christian, is not exactly on the same page with him right now. And that just to give you an example of even people in high-ranking offices within his own administration. When was the last time you heard Marco Rubio in the last 5 days? Have you? No.
Yeah.
All you see is J.D. Vance all over the news. Because people have a hard time with what they see. And some people still hang their thing on values rather than interests. But and again, I will always, forever, be comforted by the Word and by the Lord, and not by what I see. I am disappointed, but I figured I'm not going to echo those things anymore. I'm not going to echo deception. Not that I have a thought that I did, but right now, to me, if I continue to voice these things, it's deception. Everything we see is deception. If the leader of the free world can tell you today A, B, C, D, and then the next day is telling you A, B, C, D is not the right thing, and he will convince you that means the whole time he told you A, B, C, D is the right thing was deceptive. And so why bothering? The only thing that will stand forever, that cannot be changed, cannot be shaken, is the Word of God. The flower fades, the grass withers, and the word of the Lord stands forever.
And even with that, the time is ticking. So we don't have much time even for that, much less all of this other trying to...
I have zero respect to any politician from any country, by the way. Doesn't matter if it's anywhere, that will say to me ABC, and then the next day will tell me, no, ABC is actually not good. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah, it's ADB are instead.
Yeah.
Trust me on that one. Like how, yeah. Well, look, the irony here, gentlemen, is when you have shared values like some of these so-called Christian countries that have Christian cultural roots, when you have an evil that exploits the generosity, the compassion, like
Yeah.
immigration, and you delete justice from the equation or law, then you end up like the UK, Europe. And
But
let's face
Mike,
it,
you don't have Christian countries anymore. That's the thing. There are no Christian countries.
even long before the Muslim.
There's the Christian. There's the nation of believers, holy nation, priesthood, all of that. But they're from every tribe and every tongue, and every nation. They're not. There is no country in the world that is a Christian nation right now. Unfortunately, I'm saying that, but there's no such thing.
We have
And
residual
even-
values that are lingering but dying
Yes.
because of the
And the
shaking
only
hand.
one that
Our
will ever
citizenship
be.
is in heaven anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But even the millennial kingdom, okay, for 1,000 years, Jesus will reign from Jerusalem. You would think that it's going to be with people that are 100% followers of the Messiah. You would think that there's no way they will ever
Right.
choose to
But-
sin and choose to follow Satan. And the biggest ever rebellion against God in the history of mankind is actually going to happen at the end of 1,000 years millennial kingdom in planet Earth that is as close as it could be to Eden-like terms,
to think about
and
that.
with a theocracy with Jesus Christ himself reigning from Jerusalem for 1,000 years, and all of us with our glorified bodies. That tells you that even that kingdom will bring about eventually a lot of heartbreaks
Nature's powerful.
and
Wow.
we have to take from all of this, and Pastor Barry, I'm sure you will agree, we're up for a lot of disappointment in the future, and a lot of heartbreaks, and a lot of tears that will be shed, and we better get used to it, because we will see a lot more, and
Wow,
that's it.
I'm laughing because it's so true. And like you said, both you guys said, new heavens and new earth, that's the final end goal.
Exactly.
And we're going to get there. We're going to get there. All right. So speaking of the millennium, Pastor Barry, Masari is asking this question. Ezekiel states that in the millennial kingdom, the promised land will be divided among the 12 tribes. Where will Gentile Christians live? I mean, we've opened the door to this discussion already. So what can you add? What light can you add to Masari's question?
Well, we as glorified saints are going to be ruling with the Lord. So I don't think you're going to see a Gentile Christian distinction made amongst the ruling class, so to speak. Now, we do know that everybody that goes into the millennium who survives the tribulation is going to enter into the millennium, both Jews and Gentiles, in an unglorified state. And, everybody's going to be a believer, but they're also going to have children who are going to have to make the decision for or against Christ. God has no grandchildren, only sons and daughters, as the saying goes. But, I think we're going to, we see Egypt clearly identified. If they don't come up for the Feast of Tabernacles, they're going to experience a loss of rain. So it seems to indicate that the Egyptians are going to have a country. And I think, we've got evidence that, other groups are going to exist at that time. So I think there'll be some type of, national arrangement since Egypt is kind of the identifier there. And so, I really don't know that we can say definitively that, the American Christians are going to live here. This group's going to live there. But it seems like there are going to be nationalities during the millennial reign of Christ. And Egypt is the example that's used there.
Yeah.
And
there's
Mike, if you will behave, we might let you rule Gaza if you want during that. No, I'm just joking. No, I said if you will behave. No, it just I'm just saying, just like Pastor Barry said, there will be geographical locations, but remember, it's a post-tribulation war. And post-tribulation world, excuse me, and it's a world where a lot of the things that we see today will not exist then.
Right.
I mean, such as islands,
Right.
for example, stuff like
Right.
that. So, I believe that you guys will definitely, we'll leave you something to.
Well, I'm going to open up new hotels on the coastline and try to at least capitalize on that.
But
And
think about it, Mike. Think about it. Every nation will have to go to Jerusalem every year to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Think about the business opportunities. Think about hotels, airlines, tours, all of the food. I mean, we can have great businesses not that we need, not that food will even mean much
God's
to
cheap
us.
real estate right now, so I could really capitalize and leverage that to the advantage
Yeah.
of the millennial kingdom. So thank you for that vision. Let's throw Jackie's question up there, guys, because this is also coming off of, and we'll answer this one
Yeah.
really quick. When we come back with Jesus to reign in the millennium, what will our bodies be like then? Now, Pastor Barry commented on that, because when the rapture occurs, our bodies will be changed. Do we keep those glorified bodies? And the short answer, gentlemen, is yes, we do. And I guess that answers that question. I just wanted to make sure, Jackie, you got an answer. It was an easy one. Anything to add on that, gentlemen? Otherwise,
I mean,
Yeah,
Okay.
Philippians 3
That's it.
says that our bodies will be conformed into the image of his glorious body. So
amen.
that gives us one indication as to what our bodies are going to be like. And 1 John 3:2 says, when we see him, we will be like him. We will see him as he is. So I think
As he
that's the
is.
answer as to what our bodies are going to be like. They're going to be like that which we saw of the resurrected Lord, at least having capabilities beyond the natural human state. And we'll be able to obviously live forever.
Yeah.
But there'll be much better versions than what we have right now.
will we
Yeah.
be
By the way,
past-
Mike, many of those questions we answered in our book, Bible Prophecy: The Essentials. I don't know if we have the plug-in
Yeah.
for that. Bible Prophecy: The Essentials. It's not really the book that we promote during this program, because what we did, we compiled all the Q&As that we've had for years, and we've answered, both Barry and myself, the 70 most frequently answered questions on the topics, anything from the return of the Jews back to the land, all the way to the basically the new heavens and new earth. And so it's called Bible Prophecy: The Essentials, and you can always get it online. And also, Pastor Barry himself has a book called The Times of the Signs, and I think you can also see it right here on the screen, where he also addresses the times in which we live and the things that we should pay attention to as we are approaching that day. So here it is. Yep, Pastor
Yeah.
Mike.
Next question, Amir. Catherine. Sensitive topic, but that's why we do these. We cover all of these topics. What are your thoughts on Turkey's membership in NATO? Seems as though it's deceptive, because if there is conflict between Israel and Turkey, all members of NATO will side with Turkey. So that's the question. So there's some assumptions in that question. What does it mean, Turkey, NATO, and Israel, and the triangle of relationships from your perspective, Amir?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of anomalies with Turkey being a member of NATO. To start with, Turkey openly threatens Israel. To start with, the president of Turkey wants to liberate Jerusalem, the capital of a sovereign country. So that's one thing. The second thing is Turkey is flirting with Russia and buys weapons from Russia, and also, is not a member of the EU. And so Turkey is also using a lot of the immigrants within its territory to blackmail the EU. Turkey
Voila.
is also not exactly a democracy as NATO members are. I mean, he's imprisoning whoever he wants. Anyone that stands up against him is finding himself in jail, whether you're a politician, a journalist, a judge, or media person. It's a joke. Not to mention the fact that Turkey has installed in Syria someone who is still massacring thousands of people that are, not Sunnis. And I'm talking about the Alawites and the Druze and the Christians and the Kurds. So Turkey is an anomaly. Now, I also believe that America is going to step down from world superpower platform, and with it, NATO will collapse, and Turkey will find its home with the Russia. That's the eve of the Ezekiel war, because in the Ezekiel war, Turkey is not going to be a member of NATO fighting for NATO on behalf of NATO with NATO members. Turkey is going to fight with non-NATO members on behalf of them, for them, and with them, and not a single NATO member is mentioned in that war as a power that is playing any role in a military campaign there. So all I'm saying is that the anomaly that we see today will materialize into what it truly is in the near future, when that war is going to come to pass. And there's a lot of good Turkish people. I believe that many of them are not exactly in that mindset, but the Muslim Brotherhood is now ruling that country. And it's abusing it and using it to fulfill the fantasies of the leader to become a sultan and to have revive the Ottoman Empire and to be a world power once again. Now, Turkey's economy is in shambles, and that's one more reason for them to start a war. And so, again, Turkey is an anomaly now, and it will definitely become an active enemy. Now, among the Israelis, there's a consensus that what used to be a strong ally in the past is now an enemy. Turkey is labeled by the Israelis as enemy.
Yeah, Pastor Barry, Muslim countries, extremely nationalistic countries like Russia, caliphates, Gaza, why can't people see, Amir just said that Turkey's economy is in shambles, and you can see evidence of that with all of these other countries that are exerting their military political agenda. They struggle. Can't they see that this dead, sick religion of Islam is destructive when they really grasp onto it tightly? I mean, is nationalism and this extreme religious Islam part of the equation for this whole coming Ezekiel war with Turkey, Russia, and Iran? Map that out for us. How does NATO become, in a sense, irrelevant and these other nations and their religions take over? Do you see it that way, or how do you see that?
Well, it's interesting, Mike, because one, we know from Zechariah that all the nations of the earth are going to be anti-Semitic, and God is going to fight as he fights in the day of battle against all of them. When you have the Ezekiel coalition in mind, you've got 4 of the 5 nations that are named there that are extremist Islamic in nature, and God is going to destroy these invading forces. And Mike, what you said, I think, is part of the age of deception and delusion that we are now deep into, because it's kind of like socialism. You've got, socialism that's just, it's like the golden egg to some people when it's never worked anywhere. And the same is true, you've got these Muslim countries where, there's a few people that live in an elite state, well-financed, and enjoy a life that the rest of the population would like to live. and yet
Yeah.
the country's in shambles and people can't keep their lights on. Any of the same things that communism has brought. So I think part of it is just the spiritual deception and delusion that we're living in today. But one thing for us to remember is that the Antichrist is going to allow the Jews to build a third temple, the one that he will later defile at the midpoint of the tribulation. And the reason that's going to happen is because God, and I'm not sure why only the King James puts a percentage of survivors of the Ezekiel war, but 5/6 of the invading nations are going to be destroyed. So God himself is going to destroy radical Islam. He's going to
God
destroy
himself.
Shiites. He's going to destroy Sunnis, because we know the Ezekiel war ends by the hand of God. Flooding rain, earthquake, a fire mingled with blood, all these other things that we see mentioned there. And that's the acts of God. That's not a description of human weaponry. But God is going to bring radical Islam to an end. And I think that's going to be one of the early moves of the lawless one, the man of sin, the son of perdition, as he's labeled. He's known as the beast in Revelation 13. And he's going to say, hey, you know what? Let's let the Jews build the temple after what we just saw. Probably a good idea to let them have their way. And this is how I believe he's going to pitch this to the rest of the world. Can you imagine trying to build a temple right now? Gershon Solomon, the head of the Temple Mount Faithful movement, tried to set the cornerstone some 25 years ago, and there was gunfire and loss of life and all these other things. So it just wouldn't go right now. But once God deals with radical Islam, then that will open the door for the building of the third temple.
Amir Tivia is asking this question. So again, we were joking earlier about me taking over Gaza in the millennium, which, that's fun. But the Middle East is roughly 99% Muslim. Okay. Let's throw up Tivia's question. These countries are calling on Israel to give the Palestinians, the so-called Palestinians, their land to form a state. Why don't the Muslim countries just give them some? Look at all the land the Muslim countries just take a little slice, and just say Palestine. Why can't we do that? It's like-minded people. It's in territory similar to what they have been occupying, and they can speak Arabic and travel freely. And
Mike, any territory that used to be ruled or occupied by Muslims by their own Muslim law must return to Muslim hands. So even parts of Spain that used to be controlled by
even
Muslims.
If another country won that in a legal war, even
they don't
care about
what
that.
do you mean
then,
legal war? There is no such thing as legal war. There's no such thing as it belongs to you. There's no such thing as history, archaeology. There's nothing matters for them unless a country or a territory that was once occupied by Muslims is returning back to Muslims. They are obliged to fight until they get it. You have to understand that Hamas has no allegiance to a Palestinian state. Hamas is not looking for a political entity called Palestine. Hamas is looking for a Muslim entity. Hamas is looking for a Muslim territory that will be part of a larger and broader Muslim world. The Islamic State, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda, all of those, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of them have the same ideology, but not the same method. Al-Qaeda, for example, they believe that they should force the world to become Muslim by, terrorism and stuff like that. ISIS thought, we're not going to wait. We're going to already create Islamic State right now in whatever we have and just make it bigger and bigger. Both failed in the short term. The Muslim Brotherhood, however, they have a plan that goes 100 years from now, and they know that you don't take over the West. by starting a war with them. We tried that, it didn't work. We take over the West by infiltrating and by starting small with first of all, give us some rights, then give us the mosque, then give us, the institutions that are ours. Then give us the right to vote, and then we vote for the local council, then we vote for the municipality, then we vote for the state legislator, then we vote, and before you know it,
UK. There's your UK conversation earlier.
that's your UK, that's your parts of Western Europe right now, and before you know it, that's how your Congress is going to be. Your Congress is a reflection of the exact same thing. It just happens a bit slower, but not for too long. That's the difference. They don't have, the end game is the same. It has to be all Muslim. So if you're asking, why is it that this 1% should not be Jewish? It's because they don't believe in such a thing as, let's give 1% that used to be under Muslim control, let's give it to the Jews because they deserve it, or they fought for it, or they won the... No, they don't think the way we think.
They don't.
They don't care if the archaeology proves that they've never been there longer than Islam exists, for 1400 years. They don't care that the Jews were there first. As long as now they take it and that's theirs, that's it. So, facts don't matter.
Yeah.
So this is it.
Yeah. Yeah, Pastor Barry, what else do you see in this equation? The Palestinians have actually been in Lebanon and in Jordan and even temporarily. Is there anything else about this? I mean, is it just, are these people just, according to their so-called brothers, that's their land, live, die, sink or swim, we will never, ever by principle let you into our countries? Is there anything else you want to say before we only have 7 minutes left, so we'll have to land the plane?
Yeah, Mike, you made a good point. They've been here, they've been there, and nobody wants to take them in. I mean, there's massive land available in the other Arab Muslim countries, and yet nobody wants to take them in. Look at the fence that Egypt has built to keep the Palestinians out. It's just massive. And yet, Israel is criticized for the walls that it builds for its own safety and protection. So, I think because the matter at the heart is spiritual, they want to see the destruction of the Jews and to take over the land. They've had 5 different offers to establish a Palestinian state, but that's not their goal. Their goal is the demise and the cessation of existence of the nation of Israel.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, we have about 2 or 3 minutes. There's one question.
Mike, I want to remind people that much of what we see today, the compromise within governments and the fact that the voice of the people of God sometimes is a voice of the minority, and yet God is still God is still working and He's in control. And throughout generation, He's always been using minorities and remnant. And that's the story of Elijah. And that's the story of the thousands of prophets that were left in the land. And so I want to encourage you. I mean, first of all, I'm coming out with this book that is all about that, and it will speak to you and to how you feel nowadays, and I hope and I'm sure and I'm praying that it will encourage you through the story of Elijah himself. But I also want to remind every one of you guys that are watching right now that you may think you're alone, but you're not alone. You may think that nobody within your town or city or your country is like that, like you, but God has always worked that way, keeping a remnant and working through that remnant. That's how the people of Israel survived. There's always been a remnant, And that's why we will always, see the good hand of God. Even though we are small, we're a minority, even though oftentimes we feel like we're, being attacked by everybody, including governments and all of that. Remember to stand firm courageously. God is watching, and God will equip us with the strength, the power, and the faith that we need to go through all of that. We just need to be less in the world and more in the Word.
Wow. Very, very nice. Yeah, I just want to say something to all of those who are watching this right now. Everything that we do in this ministry is because of your prayers, because of your donations. And I was reflecting on this last weekend, gentlemen, just how beautiful this partnership, this worldwide community comes together in simple ways. And we go through this challenging forest of these days that we live in. We will not stop getting you guys, all of you, those who watch this even not live, we will not compromise in throwing the truth at you and equipping you and giving you the tools. So if you feel led to give, it's right there on the QR code. But gentlemen, we are pretty much out of time in regards to the questions. So until the next one.
Yeah. And so I want to thank everybody for watching. By the way, we've done great in the last Q&A. A lot of you did what we ask you to do, and it's to share. You subscribe to our YouTube channels. You shared with many, and that's why the last Q&A crossed 110,000 views. And this is it, guys. It's very simple to share. It's very simple to follow, comment, and like, and all of that. It's very simple. It's just a press of a button, but it can change lives of people. And
Absolutely.
All of us in these modern days, all of us are evangelists, and we can do our share. It's just a click of a button, and you never know how the algorithm is going to spread it, and who's the one who's going to watch it and find comfort, or maybe even find faith for the first time, be drawn unto the Lord. So please leave us a comment, even just where you're from. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. We love you. We thank you. And I want to thank you, Pastor Barry, for being with us here. Pastor Barry is the senior pastor of Calvary Central OC in Southern California. It's not that this is what he's doing with us is just it's not a job, but it's not his main thing. He is a senior pastor of a good sized church in Southern California. That's his main thing. And so we always appreciate you taking the time to be with us, both online and also when we travel and speak around the world. Pastor Mike, thank you for moderating it. Please share this video with as many as you can. Thank you. God bless you. And shalom from Galilee. God bless you.